Ever wonder how the most groundbreaking tools and partnerships find their way into machine shops, reshaping what's possible on the shop floor? Our guest today doesn't just wonder, he's dedicated his career to making it happen. With over 23 years in manufacturing, Arthur Field With over 23 years in manufacturing, Arthur Field, Director for Strategic Partnerships at MTD CNC, knows the impact of real solutions and how to get them into the hands of those who need them the most. Hello, and welcome back to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Mayer. Today, we're exploring the journey of someone who's been at the heart of manufacturing innovation for decades, from the factory floor to the boardroom. And before we dive in, don't forget to visit us at themfgconnector.com, where you can catch this episode and so many more. You'll also find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and you can find all of our latest updates. If you're looking for practical solutions, make sure you check out our YouTube show, The Manufacturing Connector, where innovation meets the shop floor. So, folks, today Arthur Field will be sharing insights he's gained from working alongside the big players and the unsung heroes in manufacturing. We'll learn how his unique experience with MTD CNC is helping to shape the culture that values transparency, innovation, and inclusion for everyone in the industry. Get ready for a deep dive into Arthur's journey, his perspective of manufacturing culture, and his vision for the future. You will not want to miss this. Arthur Field, welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. How are you doing today, my man?
Oh, Jim, man, that intro, I'll tell you what, that's a lot of crafting and love in that intro. I am blown away. I'm sitting here just like, is he talking about me? Like,
Well, so and I'm glad you bring that up, man. You know, when you go into a restaurant and you taste the food and you can literally taste the love that came through that food. That's what I want my intros to be for my guests. I want you to feel the love I have for you, man.
Mission accomplished. It is awesome. Felt and received. 100%, man. 100%.
And for those of you listening, Arthur and I really never had interacted before IMTS this year. And I may be off base, but I felt like we became really fast friends, like hanging out on sidewalks in front of Chris Lukey's concert to the different events and seeing you through the show. Like, Arthur, you're a really cool guy. My one requirement to be on this show is I have to want to drink a beer or a cup of coffee, depending on who the guest is. And you fulfill that requirement. So thank you very much for taking the time on a Friday to be with me today. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Well, feelings mutual, man. I met you and I'm like, this guy, he's up to things. I'm like, I don't even know if he counts as competition right now. I don't know. I don't care, but this is a really cool dude and he is doing big things for manufacturing. And I had seen your posts all over LinkedIn before that, but we had never really interacted.
Yeah.
So I was just so happy that you were one of the people I had time to meet because that week was just a whirlwind.
Man, we're like at least a month and a half after, and I'm still recovering from IMTS. Like it's just, it was a week. It was, man, and we'll get into that a little bit more, a little bit further down the road here. Arthur, my icebreaker for all of my guests is, what does culture mean to you? And this is a manufacturing culture podcast. We got to talk about culture in some way, shape, or form. So I want to know, the guest or the audience wants to know, what does culture mean to you?
Culture to me, I guess I really define it by what I see as good culture, right? Like, and then it's either it's lacking or it is that. And culture to me revolves around, it's a bunch of people that are appreciated for the skills that they bring to the table, and they're not penalized when they muck up, because we all mess up all the time. So culture to me is very collaborative, and it's very much a contribution to each other and helping people even adjust their roles at a company. If, you hire someone as a machinist, but, they're really good at the more technical engineering side, or you hire someone in HR, but they decide they want to try that path. It's about finding that alignment because to me a lot of that it's all based around more servant leadership, right, where you're figuring out what the people around you need as the leader in the shop, and you're figuring out how to get it to them. And
Yeah.
sometimes that involves helping people discover what
Mm,
it is that they need. And so it sounds all mushy gushy, but for me, we spend so much time in our lives working that it's got to be a good time. I've worked in some places I did not enjoy, and I don't want to ever create that for another human being.
yeah.
I don't want to be responsible for them getting out of bed and like, oh my God, I got to go to work. I don't want to create that for another.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have. Uh, I'm sure I have. When I first got into leadership when I was like 17, okay, I was not the best human being in my first leadership
Wow.
role. Um, but that's what culture is to me. It's that environment where you want to go, that you know that the culture is good in your job, whether it's a machine shop or wherever, when you want to go, because there's appreciation and there's acknowledgement and there's that extreme accountability where you mess up and you're like, man, I messed that up, that was me, and you clean it
Yeah.
up together as a team or individually or whatever needs to happen.
That's awesome. I
So
love that.
does
And
that answer your question? I don't know.
I've said it before, man. There are no wrong answers on the Manufacturing Culture
Perfect.
podcast because what you speak is your truth, right? And I love that answer for a couple of different things, a couple of different reasons. One, you talk about alignment a lot in that answer, right?
Yeah.
And to me, and the way I define culture to for organizations that are confused is it all starts with the alignment of the people, the values between the people and the organization. Once you have the organizational values and the human values aligned, that's the
Yeah.
foundation, right? And you said exactly that. The other reason I love your answer is you talk about the amount of time that we spend at work. And a lot of us, those of us who have spouses and significant others in our lives, we spend a lot of time dating, finding that person, etc. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we seem to have a proclivity to leave a human easier than we do jobs, and I don't understand why that is.
Yeah.
Am I right?
I almost spat out my water. Yeah, yeah. I've definitely held jobs longer after they were not serving me, than I have held some partnerships.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's wild to me. All right, man, let's get into your story
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
What first drew you into manufacturing?
Uh, money drew me into manufacturing. So my first manufacturing job, I'd been working customer service, and there was an opportunity to work in an assembly plant assembling like two-hole punches and all this other stuff. There was a path there was a possibility of advancing to like line leaders and moving up through leadership. There was a possibility of greater compensation for that. And at the time when I got into the assembly plant, I was like, man, I would really like to go teach English in Japan. Um, and so I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to earn a little bit more money. I'm going to work on my leadership. I had a cousin that had already spent 6 years in Japan teaching English. So she was like laying out the groundwork for me to go over there. And that never happened. Spoiler alert. I met a lady. She got pregnant. And I moved into machining because more money in machining,
Yeah.
and I no regrets. But my life just took a very sharp turn into machining.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. That so let's back up a little bit because I feel like
Okay.
I'm missing some vital details here. Why
All right.
was that the path that you thought you wanted to go down? Like where are you from? That was what you wanted to do, was go to Japan and teach English.
Oh, so I wanted to go to Japan and teach English selfishly because I fell in love with Japanese culture in like grade 8 or 9.
Cool.
Just the respect that's in that culture, and because I really, at least my experience up to that point was, they accept people as they show up, and they're very understanding, but then there's also very strict guidelines, and that appealed to me for whatever reason. I also had a big love for anime and video games and
Yeah.
all of the geeky endeavors.
Yeah.
I say I still have. That's still a guilty. That's still a pastime. It's just a very small pastime now. And when I
Right.
was younger, it was a big chunk of my life.
Sure. Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Arthur, I think myself and the audience can hear a bit of an accent out of you. Where are you calling in from today?
So I'm calling in from just outside Vancouver, a place called Chilliwack. It's in British Columbia on the west coast. I grew up in southern Ontario, down with big auto manufacturers, though. That's where I grew up.
Like New London type area?
It's Waterloo region. So yeah, about 45 minutes from London, about 45 minutes from Toronto, about 45 minutes from Hamilton. We were kind of in the middle of the three bigger cities that most people know there. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool, man. That's still a wild experience, and Vancouver is on my bucket list of places that I need to make
when
it
you're
to.
up here, you'll have my number. You will call because there's a lot of cool places to check out, dude.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. All right. So let's go back into that first job you had, and how did that experience shape your perspective of the industry as a whole? I mean, you're a young man, you're getting into an industry to make money because you see it as a lucrative career pathway, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So if we're talking the assembly plant, I got into that and it was really interesting. It was really surreal for me because how old? I was like 18 at the time, right? When I got into the assembly plant. I worked customer service while I was still in high school. And then I was still working the customer service and I was working a second job at the assembly plant. One of the attractions was I could do afternoon shift there. And so I could double end my shifts and I could work two jobs. Don't do that.
Do not recommend.
I ended up work-induced mono is what they called it. I was working 80 hours a week in two physically demanding jobs. And they're like, I went on bed rest for like 2 weeks. Anyway, so the assembly plant, what I liked about it was that I could go in and I could see in my head the way things looked and the way things worked. I had a couple moments where I didn't get that other people didn't see the flow on the assembly line the same way I did.
Yeah.
I had some butting the head moments because I was like, no, we need to change this and change that. And they're like, dude, you're the new guy. What the F? Like, no.
Feel free to curse on my show. You can cuss on the show.
Okay. Yeah. But I was like, they're like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? I'm like, look, well, you're doing it wrong and just do it. And I kept going to different people. And eventually it didn't take me long. I got to the plant manager and I was like, look, Cheryl, I was like, you need to let me do this. I'm like, they're complaining about our deliverables. They're complaining about the throughput. And I know if we make these changes to the assembly line, we're going to be able to meet it. And she was like, okay. She's like, you can go on afternoon shift, that's when I wanted anyway. She's like, you can try it out on afternoon shift. I blew the day shift out of the water with 20% surplus over their day production. I had less people and we only worked for 6 of the 8 hours. I think it's long enough that I left that job that I can say that now. So it was really fun. I really liked the game of it because it was just like, oh, let's tweak this, tweak that, try this. No, okay, the flow is wrong. Okay, reorganize it. So it was a really cool career there because when they brought new assembly lines, we started assembling new products. I got to lay out the assembly lines. I'd been there like 2 months and like, okay, here, you lay out the assembly line.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it was
fun.
You
went there into machining because your life took that left turn to Albuquerque, as Bugs Bunny used to say. Tell us about that role that you had there and how that shaped the future course of your career.
Well, the way it shaped, I don't know, man. A lot of my first jobs really taught me that older people are really resistant to the new guy showing them different ways to do things.
Yes.
It was kind of the same story in machining. First, I didn't think I was going to get the job because when I did the exam, it was through my dad's friend, but he was the head of the QA department. And then he gave me to one of his subordinates to interview me. And part of the interview was using precision measurement equipment. And we're measuring stuff. And we measured, I want to say it was a 0 to 1 mic. We were measuring the thickness of a flange, and he measures it, and I measure it, and he's like, "Nope, you're wrong." And I'm like, "Do your measurement again." Right? Cocky young guy. I could have had a gentler approach, and I did not. And so he measures it again, and he goes, "Huh, you're right." And he was so mad at me for the rest of the interview. I left that interview. I'm like, "There's no way I'm getting in here." I got the job. My reward was I got the tightest tolerance job in the shop. I had to hold 2/10 of an inch across a 4-inch barrel for these transmission hubs. That was my first job. That he was like, "Oh, it's because you're so precise. I think they just wanted to see me fail out of the company." But instead, I upped the production on that line.
Well done.
Because when I went there, I was like, "Okay, how do I know when do I change an insert?" They're like, "Oh, just figure it out." And I'm like, "Well, I don't like that answer." In my head, I didn't say this part out loud. And so again, I went to afternoon shift because I was still working day shift at the customer service gig. And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm going to start every shift by disassembling all of my turning tools. I'm going to clean all the seats. I'm going to clean all of the inserts. I'm going to replace the screws I need to replace because they'd always get damaged. The heads, everyone knows how damaged those heads get."
Yep.
And I was like, "I'm going to start every shift like that." I started every shift like that. I was really annoying because I insisted on having these parts and they didn't have them. So I had to go steal them from other places. But anyway, then I was able to just slaughter all of their production targets again.
Awesome.
So I was like, "Man, this is cool. I can affect things, my habits, the things that I do affect the amount that I can put through."
Yep.
And then it was the first place that I got in a lot of trouble because I was out producing everyone again. And everyone around me is like, "Dude, you're making us look bad. Like go to the bathroom, go take a break, like go take 2 hours for lunch." I got a lot of that. But I allowed it to weigh on me, right? Like I was a young guy. I didn't want to like completely disrupt it. I did want to be successful. I knew if I pissed off all my coworkers, I wasn't going to have a very long career at this place because no one was going to want to help me if I'm making everybody look bad.
Yeah.
So it was, again, I would work like 40-50% of my shift. I'd hit production quotas plus a couple pieces, and then I'd stop. I'd go sweep up. I'd go learn another machine. They had 101 CNCs. So I started on a dual spindle watch on with the Op 1 was rough casting. Op 2 was a mandrel, an ID mandrel. And so I would run all of that, and then I'd go around. I'd help other people that were falling behind on their production. I'd help them understand the process flow a little bit better, help them change their inserts, whatever I could do so that people in the shop would like me more.
Wow. That, I mean, and you phrase it in almost a selfish way, self-deprecating, selfish way, because you wanted to people to like you. But in reality, you're leading that shop floor team at that point, right? I mean, they're able to look to you for guidance on how to do their job more effectively and better.
Yeah, it was cool. Within 2 weeks, I was the crew trainer for new people. Wow. Which again, I was like, "Dude, this is my first time working in a machine shop. Why am I the guy training people?" And they're like, "Well, look, Arthur, the reality is I can explain something to you once and you get it." They're like, "So I can spend an hour with you and then you can spend 2 weeks training a new hire and I don't have to keep coming back and I can focus on other shit." They're like, "So that's the way it's going to be. I'm going to give you half an hour to an hour of my time at every new station." I got to learn, I never remember the number, 30, 40 different machines in 6 months.
Wow.
And different product lines. And they're like, "And then you're going to sit there and you're going to train the new people."
Wow.
And I got really good at training people, which was cool. I really like working with people and training people, right? Like, I don't know. It was weird. So yeah, that was the first shop. I was only there 6 months. Like,
it seems like an entire career. So take us from that first machine shop to MTD CNC. What's that journey been like for you?
Okay, I'm going to go a little higher level. Otherwise, we're going to be here for forever. You've brought on someone with the gift of gab, and I could talk for hours straight. But But so after that, so I was only there 6 months because my wife at the time, now I'm married, my son's born, he's 7 months old. By the time I leave this shop, she had left when he was 7 months old, to the West Coast to live back in Washington State because that's where she was originally from. And so I missed his first Christmas, and then finishing up because I was trying to get to the 6 month mark to beg for a week off. I got the week off. They were like, okay, take the week off. You're going to come back and start your apprenticeship. I said, cool. I drove out here. I got to the West Coast, and I'm like, I'm never leaving my son again. So I relocated. I did security guard training. I lived in my car for 6 months. I had to beg for food on the corner for a little while. I'd lost like 85 pounds or something stupid.
Wow.
Because I was only eating like every other day, every third day, something like that. Because it was just, it was rough. But I got back into machining. I did manual machining for 2 years. Again, same thing. It was a lot of the same song and dance where I was outperforming people because I would. It's like a gift and a curse, right? I look at something and I can figure it out really, really simply. Like, I don't know why. It's just I look at it and my brain's like, oh, this. And I'm like, oh, cool. Everyone sees this. No, everyone doesn't see this. Anyway, so I had the same thing there. I actually had a guy, probably one of my closest near-death experiences. I had two of them at this shop. I was there for 2 years. So I was turning these really big mining rims. We're talking a couple tons worth of steel on a big vertical boring mill, 60-inch table on some of them, 84-inch table on another, 40-inch on another. Massive machines, massive assemblies for rims. And he had said, oh, everything's good to run. Everything's bolted down. Just hit the spindle, start cutting. I've already taken the test cut, everything. And I looked up at the part and I'm like, oh, I see the test cut. Like he's already cut a little bit. And I hit start and the fucking rim spun around and bumped off the table, dude. It almost crushed me.
Holy shit, Arthur.
I hit e-stop and I go running. I almost died. I almost got crushed because he was so pissed off that I was like doubling his numbers. And I was making him look bad. So yeah.
That's attempted murder, man. Jesus.
Yeah. I got moved machines. Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
I had some mental health struggles at that job.
Yeah. Heck yeah, you did, man. Jesus.
And that's the only job I ever got fired from in my whole career was this shop. Wow. I just stopped showing up. I couldn't deal with the culture there.
Yeah.
You know, we're on the Manufacturing Culture podcast. The culture in that shop was so dangerous. Wow. And you tried talking to a shop floor leader about it and they'd probably just ridicule you and tell you to grow up. So Jesus. I had trouble going into there. Like it negatively affected me. I went through some dark times, but anyway, so I went into another shop after that, and that's the shop I met a really awesome leader. So I went from terrible culture into a really good culture. I go in and I'm pushing and I'm like, I'm still pushing. I'm young. I'm still dumb. I haven't learned, but I meet a manager that actually appreciates that. And he sat me down at his desk and he's like, look, I see how hard you're pushing. I see how fast you're learning. I love all these ideas you're bringing to me. He's like, I wish you would write them down because I don't remember them. Like, but he was really collaborative. Paul, I still talk to him sometimes. Really cool dude. Really cool dude. He actually like worked with me, helped me get into the leadership role. He's like, look, my day shift guy, he's like, I can't replace him. He's been here forever. He's like a pillar in the shop. He's like, but I can put you on afternoon shift and you can start working on your leadership there. I currently don't really have a leader on the afternoon shift. So I did. And, you know, he mentored me. He's the one that trusted me in doing machine repairs. So I'd crawl in and I'd do all the repairs on the machines because I like learning, all the things. He helped me do the programming, sent me for CAM training. I got to learn Mastercam at that shop. I got to do all the fun stuff, right? Like this is a manager. He couldn't get me any more money, but he could give me these opportunities to learn and to push myself and to develop myself. I got to do conflict resolution, all kinds of training, right? Lean training and all the training I wanted to do. This company would pay for all of the training. I did operational management training there. Really, really fun shop, but the money was low.
Yeah.
Then I jumped to, so that shop I was there like 4 or 5 years, just over 4 years, into the leadership. At one point it was wild, dude. I was running the shop floor. At one point, I had 14, 15 guys working under me. I didn't have my journeyman's ticket yet. I was still like under 3 years in the trade. I had 3 or 4 guys that were journeyman certified with 20 years experience. I'm telling them what to do. I'm creating all the SOPs. I'm doing everything
Wow.
to make the shop run right, which was cool. It was a
Yeah.
lot of fun, man.
Yeah.
So much fun.
That's awesome.
And a lot of really, really good people. But I left there for money. I went and I got burnt out on the leadership side. As much as they were encouraging, I felt like I hit this level where ownership level direction needed to shift in their focus. And I was like, man, I fucking hate this. I'm done. I'm going to go run a machine by myself.
Yep.
So I went to a shop and I got another $9 an hour raise. So
Wow.
I added almost a third to my income by moving shops.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I can do that. And I just did my own thing for a while. I still worked back up into more leadership on the shop floor again. I haven't been able to avoid that. Every role I've ever stepped into, I find myself leading and supporting other people. But yeah, so I got laid off there, did 8.5 years in distribution. So I go from helping and butting heads with like a single owner at the different shops to now I've got hundreds of shops.
Yeah.
I get to go visit all these different people, talk to them, hey, and figure out what are you working on? What are you working towards? What are your biggest challenges? And then if I meet people that are like, oh, I don't want to do anything, it's like, okay, well, that's cool. But just so you know, like I'm going to stop coming here then because I'm looking for people I can partner with and support on the shop floor. And if you don't value that, that's cool. But I just want to make you sure that I'm not going to keep coming back and trying to sell you nothing. Like I'm going to move on to the next guys. And some of them in that moment would be like, oh, you're serious? Yeah, man, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. Like, I'm here to help. And if I can't help you, that's cool. I'm just going to find somebody else to help. Yeah. And so they would either be like, yeah, no, nice to meet you. I've got your card. If I need something, I'll call. Okay, cool. And other ones would be like, oh, okay, well, actually, no, you know what? I am looking on this. You've got journeyman machinist experience, right? Like, let's talk about this. And so it just changed the dynamic of the relationship. It was after a layoff that I got there. I wanted to be an application engineer, but they were like, look, you can be a salesman. And so I took the salesman role. I just turned it into a traveling application engineer. Perfect. I'm out there to discover what they're working on, which at the time I didn't know is actually what sales is. I had a big misunderstanding of what sales is. Sales is just finding people with a problem that fit your solution and helping them understand how the problem and the solution actually work together. Absolutely. I didn't know that at the time. So I got to learn a lot at that distributor. I was there 8.5 years. And then the last couple of years I was trying to move into marketing, and they're like, Arthur, you're the number one salesman in the company, or second. I think the one year I was number one for earnings, and the other one I was second for both. Doesn't matter. Yeah. I was at the top of the company of 20 salesmen, right? And they're like, you're at the top. Why do you want to move out? Well, because I want to break down more walls, and I feel like I'm at my limit in sales because I've got a small geographic territory and I want to change North America.
Yeah, there you go.
So, 2 years trying to get out of that role with them, and to their, they've got their business focus. They're Western Canada only. They don't want to devote resources to making an impact outside of that. And I respect that.
Sure.
And so when I was talking to Tony, he's like, dude, he's like, look, he's like, if you find a way to go out on your own, he's like, I can give you contracts with MTD and we can start working together. He's like, I just don't have anything full time with MTD to bring you on.
Awesome.
And I was like, I came home, talked to my wife. God, I love that woman. And she's like, and I'm like, I don't know. What do you know? I'm like, I'm not going to guarantee, like, you're used to me making really good money. Like, I don't know what I'm going to be able to earn. Like, the first 6 months are probably going to be really lean. Like, are you willing to sacrifice with me? And she's like, Arthur, I'm scared if you don't do it now, you never will.
Yeah.
And so I cried, I bawled, and I hugged her and I thanked her, and I have since then. But just that level of support and trust means a lot to me. I'd never really had that in a partner before her.
That's awesome.
We started talking about people never leaving jobs. And yeah, I left a lot of women before her, and I'll never leave this woman. Like, are you
That's
kidding
awesome,
me?
man. Yeah,
So
man,
that's how I
she's.
got to MTD.
I
That's the
love it.
long version. My God, you let me ramble a long time, Jim.
I loved your story, man. I loved hearing how you've gotten to where you are now. So now you're in charge of these partnerships with
Yes.
MTD CNC. Um, what excites you about this role that you have with the organization?
I love it. Um, One, because I get to meet some really, really amazing human beings, dude. Um, these are the kind of companies, like the machine shops I go to when I travel and I'm doing the video work with them
Yeah.
on that side of it. These are the shops I always wished I could have worked at. I always joke with the owners of these different companies. I'm like, and just appreciating the work they put into the culture in their shops, because
Yeah.
it's just like you step in there and you're like, man, I don't think if I started at a shop like this, if I ever would have left it,
Mm,
because all the way from the ownership all the way through, like, all the different levels in the company, you're just like, holy, this is like the holy grail. And
yeah.
I get to work with tons of these companies now.
That's
So
awesome.
they exist. That was
Yeah.
the big thing. Because I was like, man, am I crazy? Do these companies even exist? Like, am I looking for the needle in the haystack, but there's no needle? I'm just digging through hay. Like,
Yeah.
so that's something I really love about it. And I love working with the industry side of it, the suppliers, to help them capture the value that their products and their solutions bring. Right.
Awesome.
It, that's the big thing, because technical stuff only lands for the that top 3% that are actually buying now. If it's technical and it hits their 3% buying now criteria, cool. Otherwise, you're landing on deaf ears.
Yeah.
But when I started at the distributor, the first thing I discovered, I'd been machining for 12 and a half, 13 years, and there was a whole world of solutions that would have saved me heartache. They would have saved me pain. They would have saved me sleepless nights. And I didn't even know they freaking existed,
Yeah.
because my news sources were the distributor rep. So I was relying on their training. Don't get me wrong, distributors are valuable, extremely valuable. Okay. Don't take this as shade, people that are
Yeah.
listening. I love distributors.
Yeah.
Y'all play like a seriously important role, but there's a limitation. A human
Absolutely.
being can only see so many shops. A distributor can only afford to employ so many salespeople. If you had a sales force that could go into every single building every single day and deliver the wealth of information that they have, cool. The reality is that's just not feasible. You'd have to
Yeah.
charge so much for the tools, no one could afford it, and nothing would be affordable.
Yep.
So the working with MTD, I get to craft these messages, and we've got a global platform with like over 500,000 people now between the different the different social channels. YouTube exploded by what are we took forever to hit 100,000, and then 7 days after we hit 100,000 subscribers, we hit 120,000, and then another like 6 days later, we hit 140,000 or something ridiculous.
That's
Like,
amazing.
but I think it really speaks to the need in manufacturing to have the unbiased reporting about, hey, here's a solution, whether it's a machine tool, a cutting tool, a software, whatever. It's a
Mhm.
solution for manufacturing to help manufacturers do their jobs more efficiently, more accurately, whatever. And we've got an unbiased news channel now, right?
Yeah.
And 99% of the salesmen I've met in manufacturing are super, super reputable people that I would, go to have a beer with, or I would trust their word. When they say they can do something, they can do something. But there's always that lingering doubt in the back of ownership's mind of, yeah, but you're paid to sell these guys.
Yeah.
MTD, we're not paid to sell anything, okay? We show up and we do unbiased reporting on the relationships. And my hope is the work that we do helps foster trust and helps introduce people to new solutions that weren't otherwise possible.
I love
Right.
it.
So that's what lights me up, man.
I love it. No, I love it. So what do you think if you had to pick one of the more memorable partnerships that you've had at MTD CNC,
Mhm.
what would you say that is? Because and let me tee up a little bit more for you here.
Okay.
You're a
Yeah.
huge proponent of both the big players, but also those unsung novel solutions that the booths that are my favorite at trade shows are the ones on the outer rim of the building, right? The small 10 by
Yeah.
10s, and they're struggling, but they have some really neat novel solutions. What I love about the content that you put out there, Arthur, is you you're not just focused on the big players. You're not just focused on the people who are the names that everybody already knows. You do go to those quote unquote unsung heroes. So out of all the partnerships that you've created at your time during your time at
Mhm.
MTD CNC, what is the most memorable to you?
Um, hmm. Well, we've got one that we just started up with a company called Mapal, Mapal.
Yeah.
Some people are very familiar with them. I personally didn't get to use them in my machining journey. I only
Okay.
learned about them maybe a year ago.
Okay.
Um, but they have a lot of really well engineered solutions that have both engineered like the material removal and the performance side, but also the cost and the availability. And they've kind of looked at the whole package when it comes to like precision holes.
Mm,
That's what I know them for. So
yeah.
that one's really special. I'm actually going to be going down to San Jose to record with them in December.
Very cool.
Um, so that's really cool. And then, but the other one is like Watch On. You guys have seen a lot of our Watch On stuff out
Yeah.
there, or Watchy On, or however.
Yeah.
I'm told it's called like Watch On, right? But the whole reason we started working with them and Robert over there is because they had like no representation in North America,
Yeah.
and they're Korea's original machine tool, and
Hmm.
it was actually the first machine tool I ever ran, but I only ever saw it in that first shop. And everywhere else I went, I was like, "You guys ever run Watch On?" They're like, "What?" They looked at me like I had three heads, and I'm like, "Oh, maybe it was just like a niche product for automotive or something." I didn't know any better at the time,
Yeah.
right? So that's two. I gave you two. You asked for one, I gave you two.
Well, what I love about the watch on one is you have the ability to draw personal stories to
Yeah.
the conversations that you have with Robert over there, and when you're talking with shops about the machines they use, you can pull that personal experience. I love that about what
Yeah.
you do, man. Um,
Thank you, man. Yeah.
our industry is forever evolving. Like there's
Yeah.
not a day that you and I wake up and there's not something new. How do you stay up to date on everything that's new out there? All the new tools and the trends, and how do you stay up to date on that, man?
I rely on the connections and the relationships that I build.
Okay,
I don't
that's
think
awesome.
it's humanly possible for one human being to keep on top of it all. So I've gotten to a point where I associate different human beings with what solutions envelope they cover,
Mm,
and it's the relationships I've built where that trust has been honored and it's continued to build. I rely a lot on that. I really like checking out the stuff at MTD. I know I'm preaching my own brand, but the website, you can go and put anything in. So if I'm like, oh, what's new with like 5-axis machines, I can go put 5-axis machines, and it'll show me all the new stuff about 5-axis machines that they've covered. I also benefit from just the back channel conversations when because we've got people across the world that are going around to learn about the newest things.
yeah,
So I get to learn about it that way. But a lot of it's, man, it's figuring out who to go to for what. I
yeah.
started that at the distributor level because we carried like 300 lines or something ridiculous. I'm
Wow.
not remembering 300 lines.
No.
I'm going to find a couple for drilling. I'm going to find a couple for milling. I'm going to find a couple for reaming. I'm going to find a couple for tapping. I'm going to find a couple in the different product areas I need.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let them be experts. I'm going to say, hey, I'm doing this. What do you recommend? Oh, actually, we got this new tool. Cool. Let's look at that. And then
Yep.
I can do a deep dive with them about something specific.
Awesome. I love that. That's an awesome approach. So
Yeah.
what what tools or technologies do you think are going to shape the next 3 to 5 years in the industry?
Well, one of them's definitely going to be the AI cam assist stuff, whether it's Copilot or something. That stuff, a lot. I've seen a couple solutions. Like, was it Toolpath AI or something like that?
Yeah.
Was at IMTS as a debut. And that gets a part about 70% done, is what I'm told. I haven't used it personally, but there's a
They had a
couple
cool
solutions
booth
like
though.
that.
The,
Yeah.
the
But they get
backyard
the
barbecue.
parts. Yeah. But
I
yeah, so
went and
there's a
had a
couple
beer.
solutions like that.
Okay.
I know Gibbs has a version of it as well. I think Gibbs's version is called Copilot. Um, so yeah, some those technologies, and then as well as the data monitoring with AI integrated into it
Mm,
for machine shops. So stuff there's Datanomics or Machine Metrics or a
yep.
couple of the booths that I saw that at, because they're about getting all of the information in and analyzing it, especially the partnerships that we covered on Datanomics. They're working with Karen Engineering on the vibration analysis. It's the first time I've seen vibration analysis being brought into things, and oh my god, dude! If you can get resonance feedback from a machining perspective, but then they've also got a package coming out that breaks down true cost of tooling. So we're talking how long was it in the machine? What was the cost of it? How much material did it cut? And it's
Oh,
tracking it all automatically, so you're not relying on pen and paper anymore.
that's awesome.
They're taking a lot of stuff that used to be so labor intensive that you didn't do it,
Yeah.
that they're automating it now with however they're doing it, man. These software people are crazy. I definitely think it's going to be software, both the programming, the data, the sensors, all of that,
Hmm.
the planning, as well as partnerships, because
Yeah.
you just talked about how fast everything is advancing. It If you're out there right now listening and you're trying to figure it out all on your own, I love you. You're not going to be able to do it. You
Right.
can't. You just can't. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I wish there was. You're not deficient, you're not stupid, you're not missing anything. You're just trying to do too much on your own.
Hmm. Absolutely, man. Uh, couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Uh, so, dude, what's next for you? I mean, you've had this amazing career so far, and you're like 23 years old or something. Like you're a baby still.
You're very kind. I'm 41, dude. I'll be 42 soon.
All
I'm an
right.
83 baby.
Are
83
you really?
baby.
All right. I like
Yeah.
it, man.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so, uh, what's next for you, man? What you're doing so much. What's next?
So one of the things I'm working on is on the assessment and consulting side of it. I'm working with a risk assessment software company. I actually did a recent podcast with Kellen, and he does risk assessment for Aspirations. I always say the name wrong, but there's a podcast on my channel on Machine Shop Tech Talk there. But so I'm working with them on an assessment that any machine shop can take to give them a clear landscape of this is where you're at now, from top to bottom, from your senior leadership all the way to the operations on the shop floor. But I'm trying to get it automated through a software solution. It's going to give beautiful reports, and you're going to be able to take it, say, on a yearly basis if you want to, so you can see those measures. It's really hard when you start down the continuous improvement path and the growth path to see a measured return on your
Hmm.
investments. So my intention is that it becomes that software, and it asks the questions that really only an outside perspective can bring you. So that's something I'm working on. I just, after all the years in distribution, I was like, man, you guys need to be more critical with the way you're looking at things. You keep looking to the same thing, like the newest end mill or the newest turning insert, and you haven't looked at a lot of other stuff. So that's what that assessment's towards. And then more partnerships with MTD CNC and bringing more brands on board, man. 2025 is right around the corner. I don't know if this is launching in 2025 or 2024, so
I don't
maybe
even
it's
know
already
right now. Yeah,
2025.
it could be
Yeah,
25 by
but
the time people are hearing it.
right. But that's the other area. It's shining the spotlight on the things that are making a difference to get them a place on a global stage that isn't biased by all of the politics that are present in distribution. Like if
Mm,
you've got a new great tool or an existing one that maybe doesn't get enough publicity, maybe you already get good publicity and you just want to dominate market share, but it's so political at distributorship level to get a product to market. And so we're doing everything we can to get more people's voices heard on the MTD CNC platform as well. So that's kind of
very
my
cool.
two main focuses.
Yeah, I love it, man. Very cool. Um, Arthur, just real quick, because I haven't asked you, uh, tell us about your company. You told us about getting to MTD CNC, but tell us about the
Yeah.
journey that you've been on with your organization that you created, the business you started.
Yeah, so Spindles Turning and Earning Solutions Limited. So the name came because I started making YouTube videos like 8 years ago, and at some point along the way, I started finishing my videos with "Hey, keep your spindles turning and earning," um, and it stuck. And I started having people stop me at customer shops and like, "You're the spindles turning and earning guy. I saw your stuff last night," and I was like, "This is surreal." I'm just supposed to make it. No one's supposed to watch it. No one's supposed to say anything. Obviously,
Yes.
that's not the way it works. So when I was looking to incorporate, I was like, man. So all of that started on the shop floor. So
Okay.
when I was with that really good manager I mentioned, um, I realized that I would be most productive if I just looked at anything that interrupted my spindle uptime. And what I discovered is most of the time sometimes it was operational stuff on the shop floor, but most of the time it was something else.
Got it.
It could be anything from supplies weren't in the cell, so boxes needed to be made. It could be the drawings came out wrong or the 3D model came out wrong, so I couldn't do the program in time. So that's the mindset that I brought into that. So I travel around right now I do the assessment verbally
Yeah.
with pen and paper. It's
Yeah.
not automated, but I go over their operations to really put a highlighter where they can best spend their time to get their ROI quickest. Because I feel like a lot of the owners I've met are like, yes, I know I need to do things, but I don't know where to start. I've got, Bob telling me one thing, Joe's telling me one thing, CFO's telling me a different thing. And CFOs, I love you too, but y'all are really a barrier sometimes. And we have to spend money in stupid ways just because you understand it. So if you're a
Right.
CFO and you want to chat to understand it better, let me know. Um, but yeah, so that's what I focus on. And then I hire out my time as
Awesome.
like a fractional COO
Yeah.
because it's to bring the horsepower in house. Most manufacturers that are successful right now are super freaking busy.
Yeah.
And I come on their team to help get their team moving in the right direction. And as things start to fall in place, they realize the benefits and they're like, oh, okay. And my goal is within 12 months to be irrelevant, that they
Yeah.
don't need me there. I'm just there to help them start pushing it down the right path. It's really the owners that are like, I know we need to change and I don't know how. And I know my people are doing the best they can. That's the people I step in to work with. Because if the owners aren't on board, it's not going to make a difference.
Yep. Got it. Arthur, if for some unforeseen reason somebody listening today does not know how to find you, uh, how can people get a hold of you?
Great. So LinkedIn's probably the easiest place to find me. Arthur Field, or if you do linkedin.com/in/meet Arthur, MEETARTHUR. That's the easiest way. If you look
Great.
for Meet Arthur on most platforms, or actually, I'm just redoing it. If you go to MEETARTHUR.ca. I'm up in Canada, so .ca. I've got all my social links on there. That's
Yeah.
probably a simpler one to connect on. I
And
keep
I
forgetting.
think, um,
Perfect.
Arthur, this is always the question that throws my guests for a loop because it's the
Oh no.
third but it's the third standard question. What haven't I asked you that you want to share with the audience today?
Oh man, I don't know. You've been an awesome host. You ask really good questions, dude. Like
Oh,
I'm
thank
taking
you.
notes over here because I want to ask better questions always. Uh the motivation, I guess. So you didn't really ask my motivation or what drives
Mm,
me on this path.
yeah.
For me, and it comes from probably from the way I grew up with parents that struggled. I hate seeing people struggle. I love my parents, for the record. No shade on them. They did an amazing job. I am so
Yeah.
grateful. But I have a really hard time. And when I was at the distributorship, and the whole reason I started out on my own and working with MTD is because I had to watch shops close their doors because I couldn't get through to them.
Mm,
And I couldn't help them see, right? I was a salesman. I was just trying to sell them. That's what they had in their heads. Um, and so I don't want to see a shop close the doors. Like
yeah.
if owners are out there and they are committed to doing whatever it takes because it's hard work, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm risking it all for. That's why I told my wife, like times are going to probably be lean, but I got to start this company because I know there's shop owners out there that I can impact. I don't like the idea of people giving up on their dreams, dude. I
Man,
really don't. That crushes me. So,
I am
yeah.
so happy we're friends because you
Me too.
have one of the largest hearts, dude, that I have ever found in this industry. And
Thanks.
you're a good human being.
Oh,
Um, Thank you so
thanks.
much for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your journey. It's a hell of a journey, man. And
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
I'm happy you're here. I really am.
Thanks,
So
dude. You
thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Folks, that's a wrap on today's episode. It's been, like I said, just an incredible fucking journey. He took us into the heart of manufacturing, sharing the insights that he has learned over 23 years from hands on experience on the shop floor to being a champion for innovation and for the shops that shouldn't have to close. He's done it all. He's bringing around a real impact with the technology. But it's not just a technology that he's using to bring that impact. He's building partnerships. He's sharing unbiased knowledge, as he said. He literally lifts up every person, every player, big or small, in this industry, and he's driving this industry forward. Uh, Arthur, you've reminded me, and I hope you remind the audience that there is so much importance to culture in this field, and there's no limit to what can be achieved with the right tools, the right connections, and the right leadership. Um, your dedication and your passion for this industry, man, are just unbelievable. So thank you again for sharing your story. And thank you, listeners, for joining us. So, if today's episode resonated with you like it has with me, visit us at the MFG Connector for more episodes, some resources, some learning, some trainings, and coming soon, a community platform where you can come and connect with each other. I'm the manufacturing connector, but I want you guys to connect with each other. Again, don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok for all the upcoming updates. Uh, and before you go, if you enjoyed this episode, please, please, please share it with your friends, your colleagues, your grandma, anybody who will find value in Arthur's insights. I'd love for you to rate and review the show on whatever platform you listen or watch it. If you're on YouTube right now, I doubt you are because nobody makes it the whole way through. But your feedback helps continue to bring these inspiring stories each week. And it rockets us up the charts. Every time you put a review on whatever platform you are on, somebody new then finds the show. And so that's a great way for you to share this resource as well. So I hope you all take a minute to reflect on what you've heard today. Think about how you view partnerships. Think about how you view innovation and culture, and how all those three areas can help shape your journey in this amazing industry. We've got a lot of incredible guests lined up. Stay tuned for future episodes. Until next time, keep innovating, keep connecting, and please keep telling your story. Somebody wants to hear it.